welcome everyone to Lunch and Learn. You know, it's, Baruch Hashem, this has been going on for quite some years. And it's a shiur that I'm very, very proud of, very proud to be a part of, very humbled to be a part of. It's incredible. But when someone accosts you in the street and says, Rabbi, I want to sponsor your shiur, that's special. So I want to thank the sponsors. When that happens, I thank you so much. It's a tremendous, tremendous zechut, and these words of Torah should be le'ilui nishmat Asher Adam Hassan ben Mordechai, and for Eliyahu ben Avraham Halevi. HaKadosh Baruch Hu should bless the sponsors, every word of Torah. And I would hope to bring out today how powerful it is to be part of something that we sometimes feel is a little small, sometimes we feel isn't so big. But one word of Torah, one word of sharing some love, one moment of inspiration, so powerful, so desperately needed in today's hurting world. So I'm humbled. I thank the sponsors deeply. So grateful to them. Hashem should bless them all. Bezrat Hashem. Can you hear me well? Everybody Hashem should bless them all. You should be well. You should have much hatzlacha always. Thank you so much. Hashem should bless. A magnificent story that I want to share with you. It was sent to Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson's brother. Listen to this. It says, Dear Rabbi Jacobson, I'm a musician and I live upstate New York. I usually play secular music, secular rock music. Last Thursday, I was doing a performance in a bar in Poughkeepsie. I don't know where Poughkeepsie is, but do you know where that is? It is upstate New York. Yeah, very good. As Israel started attacking and destroying Iran's nuclear weapons. Now, even though nobody in this bar even looked remotely Jewish, during the performance, I announced what was happening. And I asked that everyone should pray for peace in their own way and make a commitment to do an act of kindness to help make the world a better place. This is a pretty outlandish thing for a rock musician to do, upstate New York in a bar, right? Then, if you think that's weird, wait till what he does next. Then, I played the song Shalom Aleichem, and I explained the meaning to this non-Jewish crowd, that there should be peace. The next Friday night, I had a strange dream that Rabbi Grona, the Rebbe's secretary, called me and thanked me and said that the Rebbe wanted to thank me because that which I said in the bar inspired a Jewish woman in the audience to light candles for Shabbat, and to keep her candle light in Poughkeepsie helped bring extra blessing into the world that protected the people of Israel and helped the Israeli Air Force succeed. When I woke up on Shabbat morning, I thought that even though it was a nice dream, it was probably nonsense. It was a probably nonsense dream because I'm not an important enough person to get a message from the Rebbe in a dream. But today, Sunday morning, I got an email from a woman in Poughkeepsie who looked me up on social media and told me that I inspired her by what I said at the bar, and she lit Shabbos candles for the first time in a long time to honor Israel. And it's the first time that she's lit one since her bat mitzvah 50 years earlier. This was a letter sent to Rabbi Shimon Jacobson. If you ever underestimate the power of reaching out, the power of one mitzvah, we're told, Chazal teaches us that we don't contain the capacity of knowing what the power of a mitzvah really is. We don't know. And perhaps this is part of what I wanted to say today, is that sometimes in our all too material world, we get swallowed up sometimes in the language and the rhetoric of those more negative influences around us, and sometimes it begins to eke away at the spiritual sensitivity of who we are and what we ultimately stand for. I was reading an article this week, written very, very brilliantly by a rabbi in America who was incensed at Piers Morgan, who had brought Candace Owens onto his show. And she spewed this vile, anti-Israel, anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic rhetoric. And she lies so eloquently and so convincingly. And this clickbait is exactly what Piers Morgan and his 50 plus million YouTube viewers want. And this rabbi felt like he needs to jump through the screen and get violent, even though he's an incredibly calm and wonderful man. And he came to the conclusion, there's a brilliant theory and there's a brilliant book written about this. It's a theory called Let Them and Let Us. I can't remember the author of the book, brilliant. Of being in control of oneself and allowing other people the space to make their mistakes because we can't really do anything about it.
Okay.
Sorry? If you're in a position to do something, fair enough.
No, I just do it with kids sometimes.
You have to do that with kids. What are you talking about? I gave a goodbye speech to my school and I said to some members of staff, 30 years in a classroom has taught me to be extremely ignorant of seeing things and blind, that you have to ignore things. If you pick up on everything, you won't ever teach. But if you get upset by every little thing that somebody else does, you'll spend your life. You'll drive yourself mad. And you should know, I think this is right. He came to the conclusion that it doesn't help me to watch Piers Morgan bash Israel. It doesn't help me. If anything, it upsets me. It disturbs me. It disturbs my equilibrium. It disturbs my sanity. I had a very beautiful moment this morning. Baruch Hashem, after a year of not leaving Eretz Yisrael, my daughter came back now, after a year in seminary. Remarkable to see how Artzeinu HaKadosha, and the brilliant seminary that she was in, has changed her life. And I think I went to visit her a number of times. Listen, I don't need many excuses to go to Israel. I've been to Eretz Yisrael for one meeting alone. I've been there for less than 12 hours. I'll come back. I'll go. But I think I said here a number of months ago, I think just before December, I said, maybe it was in December, that I went for a Shabbat to Eretz Yisrael and I sat with my daughter at her favorite cafe. I know because I can see my credit card bills when she's in Israel. I can tell which one's her favorite, right? Cafe. I must admit, having gone there, I think the food in Eretz Yisrael is just in general is just remarkable. But this cafe was ridiculous. If Roladin, you're watching, I expect some commission and whatnot. Fabulous cafe. But I was sitting there, it's right opposite Machane Yehuda. And it was wonderful because Machane Yehuda on a Friday, you just see this cacophony of noise, this potpourri of Jewish flavor and value and smells, and you see all of the spices and the olives and the people and everybody getting ready for Shabbat and all forms of flavor of life. It's a very beautiful thing, and my daughter knows that my little thing is Igeret HaRamban. I used to give a regular Igeret HaRamban shiur. That's pretty challenging.
Okay.
Sorry, exactly. Every Monday I used to do it. Every single Monday. Same shiur, saying the same letter, and I marveled at it going for like 17 years. I came with the same text, and I said the same thing pretty much every single week, and I tried to connect it to something else relevant, and you good Gibraltarian folk just kept coming. I can't think it was the sandwich. I really can't. But anyway, we sit in Roladin, me and my daughter, and she says, Daddy, I brought my Igeret HaRamban, please learn it with me. So we sit there together over a rather expensive coffee and a fantastically delicious pastry or four, right? We sit there and we do Igeret HaRamban. Sitting right behind us is quite a modern Israeli-looking couple. When I finish, the guy pipes up and he says, Slicha, אפשר לדבר? I said, בסדר, בכבוד, yeah. He says, מה, אתה הרב שלה? I said, no, אני אבא. וואי, איזה מרגש. For those of us that don't speak Polish, he says, how emotional, how beautiful it is to see a dad sitting with a daughter over coffee in busy Jerusalem streets, but learning Igeret HaRamban. I thought they were mocking her. I really thought they were thinking they were a bit weird. That in the busyness of everything, here we are. And he said, you inspired me. I didn't intend to. And probably credit to my daughter, because I didn't bring the Igeret HaRamban with me, she did. And even though it's been very busy, this morning I sat in Amar's, And I recreated that Roladin moment, having coffee, sitting on the street there. I'm not commenting on pastries, thank you very much, right? I can come in your head, right? Right? And I learned the Igeret HaRamban, and there was a family visiting from Montreal. And a similar discussion takes place. Isn't it beautiful to see Jews, to see people connecting, learning? What does Igeret HaRamban say? Don't get swept up with the ways of the world. If you've been successful in something, if you have some form of material success, if God has endowed you with some form of success, skill set, fame, whatever it may be very careful not to use it for your own benefit, because it's not yours. He likens it to ki mitpa'erhu bilvush malchut shamayim. If you have something, don't flaunt it, because likelihood is that you're going to be flaunting something that is directly God's. If it's wealth, if it's honor, if it's wisdom, halol elokim, that belongs to Hashem. And a Jew's job in this world is to take whatever Hashem has given us and make the world a better place. And the minute we have some swagger, the minute we get arrogant, is the minute we diminish God. Arrogance is like filling a cup full of water. Once you fill it, there's no room for God. Once a person is filled with ego, with a sense of self, you've kicked God out. And what we need to do is we need to be humbling ourselves all the time, making room for others, for other people, for other people's pain, as we're going to see from stories and the like. And look what happens in this week's parasha. I saw an amazing point. Bilam, full of self, full of self-assuredness, to the point that when God comes and speaks to Bilam, what does Bilam say? He says, Hashem, you realize who's come to see me? You might not think I'm so important, but look who these men are. Do you realize who these men are? That's how stuffed he was in his own head. That's how rotten he was to the core, that he thinks he's somehow going to impress God by the car he's driving, by the position and the title that it's on his business card. It's astonishing. And we can see how badly it can blind. But the truth of the matter is that Bilam really was and had. What do we say in Yigdal? Lo kam b'Yisrael kenavi k'Moshe od. What does that mean? In Israel there was never a Navi. But you and I both know that Umot HaOlam had a Navi. They did have somebody who was, difficult to understand how we can say this, on par with the brilliance of the Nevuah of Moshe. Of course we understand that they had to have it. That's why the Goyim were offered the Torah. They have to be given the same opportunity to grow as we do. Bilam was an extraordinarily important man. But yet, his attitude is so hard to fathom. Like Rashi says, I told you, when Rashi says, Mi anashim ha'elei imach, just to quote exactly, when Hashem says, who are these men with you? So Bilam says to Hashem, arrogant, even you don't think I'm so important, but they do. The Melech Moab seems to think I'm great. And you see this continued blindness. Like, think for a second when Bilam's donkey starts talking to him. When it starts talking to him, it's just, he answers back as if this is something random, run-of-the-mill thing that's going on. And it's astonishing. So I see Rav Schwab tries to explain this paradoxical complexity of Bilam's personality. And he writes like this. He says, Hashem, and I'm going to paraphrase what Rav Schwab writes, but it's brilliant. And it's so deep, and I found it very, very inspiring, which is why I'm sharing it. Hashem gave us, as Rav Schwab, many senses. Most of us are blessed with sight, hearing, taste, touch, smell, etc. But there's also a sixth sense. And the sixth sense, says Rav Schwab, is the ability to be nitpa'er. The ability to be inspired. The ability to be impressed. Now, we've spoken about this before. I quoted the Rabbeinu Yonah many years ago from this platform in Lunch and Learn with regards to Esther HaMalkah, when she's being summoned, when she decides that this is her time to act, and Mordechai convinces her, and he says to her, you're right. She says, look, anyone who goes to Achashverosh without being summoned, off with your head, she could be killed instantly. And what did Mordechai say to her? Umi yodea im la'et kazot higat lamalchut. Who knows if this is the only reason, this is the moment. And he says, and if you don't act, atu betavich tovedu, you're gone. What Mordechai meant, said Rabbeinu Yonah, someone else will save Klal Yisrael. But when you feel duly inspired, it's time to act. And Hashem gives most human beings the ability to be impressed with things. And this, by the way, says Reb Schwab, is part and parcel of our ability to serve Hashem. To be in awe, to be inspired. We say every day, multiple times a day, Hakel, Hagadol, Hagibor, V'Hanora. The Chassidim Arishonim used to spend an hour before davening. Why? To try and get your brain around that idea. I'm standing in front of the Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the power of all power. And I get to ask for my things. That needs inspiration. But says Reb Schwab, and this is so powerful, just like you can deaden certain senses. I guess if you continually eat, I don't know, very strong, spicy food, you can deaden your taste buds maybe, right? We certainly know this when it comes to mental behavior. That a person can feed their brain more violent things and they become oblivious to it. And it starts to get deadened. A person can kill elements to their own senses. And if it does seem hard to relate to it, it's very, very important to look at the world around us. It's almost as if nothing makes an impression anymore. Like I said before, movies have become so violent, so explicit, so filthy, that nothing has shock value anymore. I know a news idea was sent to most of the bigger networks in the US, and one guy came up with this idea: wouldn't it be wonderful, instead of it being Oprah, I don't know, 10 years ago, let's just make a good news channel. And he came with a story of an Indian chef who works in some crazy top-end 5-star hotel in India. And this guy is feeding the gluttonous and the rich all day long. I mean, and the exorbitant amounts that these people spend. I think India has more billionaires and homeless people per capita than any other place in the world. I think so. It's astonishing how much poverty there is and how much wealth there is. And he's busy feeding these people all day long. And he decided to quit his job, and he was paid a fabulous salary. And he decided to quit his job and go and feed the homeless. He said, I've made enough money for me. I go to the street, I can pick one person off the street once a day, give him a shower, shave, give him new clothes, put him on his feet, I can do it one at a time. I might not make a huge difference, but to the person I saved, I make a big difference. This guy went to all of the networks in the US and said, can't we spread some inspiration in a world of so much pain, in a world of so much misery? Can't we start a good news channel? Right? Who's the frum lady? She's Sivan Rachav, I think her name is. She's a newscaster in Israel. I was recently at a conference. We both spoke at the same conference. And she said a great line which really struck me. She's on Israeli television every single night. For a woman.
She came here, right?
She did come here. She inspired the girls something crazy. It was unbelievable. She says, I go on television in Israel, I begin with the words Erev Tov. And then I spend the next hour describing to you how there's nothing Tov about this Erev at all. Right? She says, this guy went to all of the news platforms and all of the TV execs and said, and every single one of them rejected him out of hand. Do you know what they said? I feel bad repeating this line. I feel bad repeating this line. He said, you know what we really need? We need another 9/11. What a shocking thing to say. And the man said, who's the TV exec, he said, God forbid, I don't mean I want thousands more people to die on American soil. I'm not looking for the worst terrorist act ever to happen on American soil. He said, but when that happened, that's when our numbers skyrocketed. When we get another thing like that, we're in business. You want to spread some cheer, no one's going to watch it. We're in a world that is looking for shock value. We're in a world where every headline in a newspaper is trying to catch your attention, and it does it with more violence and more slander and more sleaze than ever before. And I want to say something humbly. I think as Jews we're being affected by this. And like I saw from my rabbi friend writing in the States, it's not for me. He concluded, Piers Morgan's YouTube channel's not for me. It's not going to help me. It's going to make me angry. My energy is better placed elsewhere. There was a line written in a piece in the Baltimore Sun. I have the quote over here. The title says, America has lost its shock value. Nothing shocks anymore. That's what happened to Bilam. Nothing shocked him anymore. An animal spoke to him. He was so involved in his own agenda. He was so involved in his own pride that he took it in stride. Every single person recognizes when, God forbid, the loss of sound or sight, when it gets lost, a person goes, chas v'chalila, terrible thing. I think we also need to recognize and realize when we stop being inspired, when we stop being inspired by being the children of Hashem, if we lose that sensitivity, it's a byproduct of gluttony, indulgence, of a Bilam style life lived, and we need to be so careful of it. And especially now, Sunday is going to be Shiva Asar B'Tammuz. We're going to go into the 3 weeks. Our subtlety needs to be on Ahavat Yisrael, as we've been talking about these last few weeks. At this point, I would like to say that I'm going to be leaving Gibraltar for an extended period of time these next few weeks, but with Hashem's help, I will do the same style thing, even though I won't be here physically for at least 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks. I don't know exactly how long that's going to be and when we'll be back together. But I will bli neder sit wherever I am in America and do what I'm doing here, and I will post it onto the chat, so at least we can be together spiritually and virtually. And I would encourage you, please God, to join us. I will make the shiur as if I'm here, please God, bli neder, B'ezrat Hashem, and post it. I don't know if I'll do it every single Thursday, but I will attempt to. I certainly will attempt to. And it's so important to stay connected, to stay inspired, to be together, sensitive to one another, and we don't realize how powerful one word can be. Look at that musician, that rock musician in some upstate New York bar. He took a stand. He stayed inspired to his story, didn't care if other people don't like it. We have to be aware of that. Other people cannot like us. Good luck. I really believe that's the way Israel is doing. The whole world condemns ICC, Ireland, South Africa. Great. Good luck. Hasn't stopped Israel before, and I don't see it stopping them now. Do you think they pay too much attention to what some stupid lawyer says, Khan or whatever? No, I don't think so. I really don't. Look, there are certain people who dedicate their lives to it and they have to combat it, etc. I agree. I don't think that's me, and I don't think that's you, and it hurts me if I get too involved in it. And I really think we can do more sitting here, spending time on the one person we can inspire, the one person we can control. That's me. I can control me, I can inspire me, and I've got to take that. And like the Ramban says, Tikra ha'igeret hazot pam achat b'shavua v'lo tifchot. Maybe an idea now that I'm thinking about it. I'll do a little video just of the Igeret HaRamban, and I'll post it so we can revise it always. It's so important, it's so powerful to stay connected, to stay humble, and to realize that our mission is to not deaden the senses and the sensitivity of what it means to be a Jew in this turbulent world. But I want to tell you a beautiful, beautiful story. Special story said over by the legendary Rav Chaim Zaid, very, very brilliant speaker in Eretz Yisrael. He was invited, his story goes like this, it's an astonishing story. He was invited, he's a very popular speaker in Eretz Yisrael, very popular. He works for Arachim, he goes on Shabbatons, thousands of people flock to hear him. He's a brilliant speaker, beautiful, beautiful man. A very, very inspiring personality. And he was invited to Kibbutz Chafetz Chaim, okay, which was for Shabbaton. And he was in the Tzipori Bakfor Hotel. I've never heard of it, but I'm sure it was lovely, right? And you should know, as they were planning this Shabbat away, very often he would go with his family. Of course, being Shabbat alone is very, very tricky. Just so happens to be that this time one of the children wasn't feeling so well. The wife was also not feeling so well. And she decided last minute, you know what, I'm not coming on this Shabbaton. It's going to be too tricky to do all the traveling, to go with you, etc. You're going to be speaking most of the time, and you're going to be up to like 1, 2 in the morning Q&A, right? The last Shabbaton that I did was with over 100, it's not the last one, but one of the ones I did recently was with hundreds of students in England. We were in some farmhouse in Wales. Friday night finished like at 3 in the morning. That was just the kumsitz and the question and answer session that I was supposedly hosting. It was crazy. The wife knows what this crazy Shabbaton's going to look like. She says, you know what, I think I need some rest. You go on your own. He said, I don't go on my own. So his teenage daughter decided that she would be the one to accompany her dad to this Shabbaton. And that's exactly what happened. And you should know Shabbat kicked off with beautiful fanfare, all of the people meeting each other, Kabbalat Shabbat, a superbly moving, singy affair, took far too long, but people loved it. And then the meal was fantastic, and then the speaker stood up, there's so many speakers over there, one of the speakers stood up and wowed the whole crowd, and everybody emotional. There's something very special about spending a Shabbat together, and the Shabbat energy goes high. It's a very, very beautiful thing. And this is what happened. After the Shabbat meal, then there was an oneg, because of course Jews, once you finish a meal, you have to serve more food, otherwise there's no point, right? I did a recent thing in America, speaking at a Chanukah hotel retreat. It was an eat-a-thon from Friday to Sunday. I'm not sure there was a moment where food was not available. It was astonishing. 2 hours before Shabbat, they put on a hot food buffet, sushi and hot dogs and sliced meats and everything, and then I'm like, we're about to eat in a few. Anyhow, it was beautiful. I'm not knocking it. It was fabulous, right? Invite me again. It was brilliant, right? It was beautiful. But after the Shabbat meal, an oneg, and then this Rabbi Chaim Zaid gets up to speak, and he takes questions and answers, and it's all about Kiruv, and it's all about inspiring people, and it's magnificent. And you know what time he finishes? As he's in the middle, his daughter kind of waves to him. He goes, Abba, I'm going to the room. And he said, yeah, fine, honey, off you go. And she goes to the room at about midnight. And Reb Chaim Zaid is still on stage, answering questions, doing Q&A, speaking stories, singing, onegging, etc. And when he finally finishes, like at 1:45 or whatever it was in the morning, he goes to the room, and he realizes his daughter's taken the key with her. No problem, go to reception. So he knocks lightly, sees if the door's open, realizes it's on this like big kibbutz, it's like outhouse, farmhouses, all these kinds of little cottages, etc. But it's very, very well run, etc. He says, no problem, I'll go to reception. I'm sure they have spare keys at reception. He goes there, it's nearly 2 o'clock in the morning, and he realizes, hello, Shabbat, Israel, who's at reception at 2 o'clock in the morning? They make sure everyone's comfortable, and then they go. So he thinks, wow, I'm really locked out. This is not cool. Okay, so he looks around. There's no maintenance person. There's no one on reception. There's nothing. He goes back to the hotel door of his room, and he knocks on the door. Again, a little louder this time. Tries to wake up his daughter. He has to sleep. The man's exhausted. He works all week. Even though he's working Shabbat, he's still got to look after himself. He keeps nothing. He says he starts to tap on the window. And tries to get in. Nothing happened. So he looks to himself and he thinks to himself, what do I do? Wake up my daughter. She's really tired. He looks around and he sees some garden furniture. And he says to himself, look, there's worse things in life. I've seen people sleeping standing up on a bus in Israel, right? A comfortable garden chair. I can see myself sleeping. If that's what I have to do, that's what I have to do. So he retreats to some garden thingy, and just as he settles down into this kind of deck chair in the garden, along comes one of the other speakers at the event. His name was Rabbi Meir and his wife, elderly couple, fantastic personality, also a great speaker, etc. And he sees Rav Chaim Zaid settling down at 2-something in the morning to sit in a garden chair. And they say to him, what's going on? And he said, no, I'm probably going to bed down here for the night. And they said, explain. And he explained, my daughter locked out, blah, blah, blah. And they said, no way. You have to have a bed. It doesn't make sense. Come on. They went back with him. They started knocking on. They actually knocked so loud that somebody else said shush from another room. And that's when Chaim Zaid said, no, I'm not disturbing other people. I'm going to be fine. There are plenty of couches and things to sleep on. It's not the end of the world. Please leave me. And Rabbi Meir said something that I said from here just last week. Remember, I read out the chinuch on what V'ahavta l'recha kamocha looks like? It means you have to take care of the feelings of other people like you would take care of your own feelings. And he said, I'm telling you, I'm not going to go to sleep tonight comfortably knowing you don't have a bed. So I'm staying up with you. Now this man is in his 70s. And Rav Chaim Zaid said, please don't. What's the sense in that? At least you go to sleep, one of us gets a good night's sleep, and both of us have to perform tomorrow. But if I don't sleep and you don't sleep, there's 2 people walking about zombies. 3, your wife also. Don't. And you know how when you start to negotiate with someone and you know they're not taking no for an answer? You know how that works? Yeah? That's what happened with this old man. He looked at Rav Chaim Zaid and he said, forget it. You can argue all you like. I'm not going to feel comfortable in my bed knowing you don't have a bed. So I'm not going to go to sleep. So it's your choice. Either I stay awake with you and you have, or I'll stay awake without you. But I'm staying awake and I'm making sure you get somewhere to sleep. And he said, please don't. They argued it was useless. Rav Chaim Zaid said it was useless. Fine. You know what? They all take a seat in the garden and the clock starts to tick around. And they share Torah thoughts and they share ideas and they start talking. And they're 70 plus, this couple. And they can see, like sometimes I see and share, the eyelids are getting a little heavy on the people, right? And Rav Chaim Zaid's feeling bad and he says, please, go to bed. And they don't. And you should know, both of them, it started to get a bit chilly. They went back inside. They went into the lobby. They're sitting there. It's nearly 4 o'clock in the morning. Friday night, nearly 4 o'clock in the morning. And Rav Chaim Zaid is like nodding off. And he sees a scooter go by in the outside. And he says to himself, like snapped him open. Wait. He says, what, a scooter going out? Who's got a scooter on Shabbat here? And that's not happening. So he said, oh, I know what's happening. There must be a maintenance guy, an Arab worker. He runs outside and he flags him down. And he says to him, Habibi, yesh lecha maftechot? You work for the hotel? So when I was reading the story, I thought, this is going to uncover a terrorist plot, whatever. No, right? He was a maintenance guy. And he was coming on his shift. I don't know what needed to happen. And he said, have you got keys? He goes, no, but reception does. He goes, please, I'm locked out of my room. At about 10 to 4 in the morning, Rav Chaim Zaid was handed that precious key. And he went into his room and he collapsed to sleep. At that point, when he went into his room, this Rabbi Meir and his wife bade him Shabbat Shalom, and they went to their room also, and they went to sleep. Okay. And he said, I want to be Mekayim, the mitzvah of Ahavta l'recha kamocha. That's why I'm staying up with you. Okay, very nice. You should know the rest of Shabbat passed. It was absolutely special, absolutely beautiful. It was amazing. As soon as Shabbat was over, people are packing up to leave to go back home, wherever they wanted to go, etc. About half an hour after Shabbat, listen to this. Rav Chaim Zaid gets a phone call. He gets a phone call from this Rabbi Meir, this elderly man, this big tzaddik, I don't know his surname, who was with him Friday night and stayed up and refused to go to sleep because Rav Chaim Zaid didn't have a bed. And he said to him, listen to this, I have a story to tell you. Rav Chaim Zaid said, I'm listening. He said, right after Shabbat, I got a phone call from my son-in-law. Listen to this. I got a phone call from my son-in-law. He said, he and my daughter were making Kiddush Friday night. She's heavily pregnant. And she starts to go into labor about 6 or 7 weeks early as they were making Kiddush. They call the ambulances. They race into hospital. Finally, when they get seen and whenever the son-in-law was pulled into a room by one of the head people in the emergency department. And he said, this is what we need to do. He said, your wife is not in a very good position at the moment. Things are extremely complicated. And we have 2 choices. One of the choices is, we could let things run its course. We can see how the labor progresses. He says, but you have to know, being that it's a complicated labor, it can have serious ramifications to the baby when he's born. It can affect his brain. It can affect the child's growth. It can affect the child. This is a precarious moment. So we could let nature take its course and we'll see what happens, but you should know there's a risk to the baby. He says, our other option would be, we could just operate right now, and we could just take the baby out. So he said, okay, so what's the choice? Just operate. He said, not so straightforward. He said, the operation that we would have to do could lead to some long-lasting side effects to the woman. So it could either be bad for your wife or bad for your baby, and you're going to have to make the decision. So in a bewilderment and in a flustered moment, he said to the doctor, very smart question, tell me, sir, what would you do? And the doctor gave him the pros and the cons. They're very careful about they don't want to be taken to court afterwards saying, he gave advice. Okay, so the doctor didn't know what to say. The doctor gave the back and the forth very diplomatically. And you should know the son-in-law at that point was so shattered and was so emotionally drained and so tired, he went outside of the room. He said, I need to think about this for a moment. Thinking to himself, he needs the da'at of a gadol. That's what he really needs. And he goes out into the hallway of the hospital. He puts his hand up against the wall and he bursts out crying. And he davens to Hashem and he says, Hashem, show me the way. Please tell me what to do. As he's standing crying on the wall of a hospital corridor, a frum Jew walks by. And the Jew sees him and he says, you're in pain, you're in trouble. Please, Rabbi, Ach Sheli, my brother, tell me what it is. How could I help? And he explains everything. He blurts everything out. I have to make a decision right now. My wife's in a bad way. The baby's different. Either way around, it doesn't seem to be a good... And the man said to him, wow, you need that Torah, isn't it amazing? On the second floor of this hospital, Rabbi Yaakov Edelstein is in the first room on the left-hand side. I know he's awake, I just passed by. He's sitting there, sefer open. Rabbi Yaakov Edelstein, the big tzaddik, the gadol. Go see him, I'm sure he's happy to see you. Okay. He goes up, races up 2 floors, goes up. First room on the left, there's the gadol Rabbi Yaakov Edelstein sitting in a hospital room. He had been admitted to hospital just before Shabbat with a small complication. They had kept him in for observation. He says, Rebbe, please save me. I have a sheila. He goes through the whole sheila. Rabbi Yaakov looks at him, calms him down, and he says, fine. He says, give me the name of your wife, and her mother's name. He gives him the name. Rabbi Yaakov does this for a moment, and then he says a very interesting line. He said, Biglal avot, toshia banim. And I give you a bracha, that you let nature take its course, and your wife will give birth b'sh'at tova u'mutzlacha to a healthy baby. So he looked again and he said, say again, sorry, just so I'm clear. And Rabbi Yaakov Edelstein repeated. And he said, Biglal avot toshia banim. Quoting a pasuk. Your wife should be left, she'll give birth b'sh'at tova u'mutzlacha to a healthy baby, everything should be good. And this is what my son-in-law calls me and says to me right after Shabbat, a few hours into Shabbat morning, she gives birth. You know what time she gave birth? At 10 to 4 in the morning. He said, but there's one thing I don't understand. Who gave birth? This Rabbi Meir, who's on the phone to Reb Chaim Zaid's daughter. It's his son-in-law talking. But he said, one thing I don't understand. Rabbi Yaakov Edelstein gave me a very beautiful bracha, but he said a very strange pasuk. What's Biglal avot toshia banim? Because of the fathers, the children get saved. What's going on? Rav Meir said, I can help you. Up until 10 to 4 in the morning, I was being mekayim the mitzvah properly. Of v'ahavta l'recha kamocha, going out of my way to feel for somebody else. And you want to know something? We're told by Chazal, when you go out of your way to feel for somebody else, Hashem will throw extraordinary yeshuot at you. The reason why Hashem puts challenging people in your life and challenging situations in your life is for your benefit. It's for Klal Yisrael's benefit. Isn't it interesting? We're right before Mashiach's times. And only in today's day and age is there such a thing as you clicking a button and supporting a school in Argentina, as you charitying and helping a mikveh out in Ukraine, of giving some money over here, over there. It doesn't have to be a lot. Isn't it amazing that our chesed opportunities, our ability to touch, our ability to stay inspired is now so much greater than it ever was before? And if we got lost to sinat chinam, ahavat chinam has to be the way to go. And we described it last week. Bilam became desensitized. So desensitized that even when open miracles were happening, he lost his sense of inspiration. We need to keep a hold of ours. And we need to stay inspired. And Reb Meir says to his son-in-law, I'll explain to you, Biglal avot toshia banim, and this has taught me a lesson, that when you think you're just being kind to someone, you're just picking up a phone, you're just checking in on someone, you're doing a lot more than you think, and dare I say it, you're doing a lot more for yourself and your family than you think. Please God, Hashem should bless all of the sponsors. Hashem should bless us all to stay inspired, to continue to do good, to continue to spread good. And this light, Be'ezrat Hashem, will deliver us from the current trouble we and Israel are in. And Be'ezrat Hashem, we will see the Geulah. Tzedek, b'mehera b'yameinu, Be'ezrat Hashem. Take care.